Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on what part of the country you're joining us from. My name is Margie McHugh. I'm the director of the Migration Policy Institute's National Center on Immigrant Integration Policy, and we're delighted that you could join us today for this webinar where we will be discussing variations in in-state tuition, financial aid, and scholarship policies for unauthorized youth. Before we get going, I'll just run through a few quick housekeeping items. You'll be able to find slides and audio from the webinar on our website today at migrationpolicy.org/events. And then as you see up there on the screen, if you have any problems accessing the webinar, please email that address that you see, events@migrationpolicy.org, or call us. There is someone monitoring that line. And then throughout the webinar, please use the Q&A chat function. It really helps us if you send us your questions early rather than waiting for the actual Q&A period, because that way we can sort of line them up and sort of begin distributing them before we hit the Q&A portion. And you can either do that with the chat function or at events by writing to events@migrationpolicy.org. We are so delighted that we have such a great team of people that will be presenting today. In addition, I'm just the moderator, and you'll hopefully be through with me very quickly. And then we'll be hearing from Tanya Broder from the National Immigration Law Center, Angelo Maffei from MPI, Candy Marshall from the Dream.us, and Erin Howard from Bluegrass Community and Technical College in Lexington, Kentucky. So I'll introduce each of them in a little more detail in a moment. For now, I'll just say I think most of you who are on the call already know about our work. I'll just say that if you only know us through the sort of DACA-DREAM work that we're involved in, or the adult education and post-secondary attainment work, we also work quite a bit lower down, I guess you'd say, in the education pipeline, with a big focus on immigrant access and success in the early childhood arena, also in K-12, and then a range of other issues, perhaps most prominently these last few months, trying to work with the White House Task Force on New Americans and some of the various areas of policy that they've been thinking of moving forward on, or that we've been hoping to support their moving forward on. So this work is obviously right at the intersection of immigration policies and college attainment. It's really quite classically an immigrant integration issue. And it's, for us and for others, it's a very important focus of work for a variety of reasons. But key to the idea around today's webinar is that there really are two different types of DREAM Acts, and we just really wanted to tease out a little bit in some of the work that we're doing, trying to clarify a little bit more some of the various differences, I guess I would say, amongst them. So at the top line level, you know, obviously most of you would already know that at the federal level, what is sort of the iconic DREAM Act for over 15 years now is the DREAM Act that seeks to give a path to citizenship for unauthorized youth who were brought to the U.S. as children, even though there's a great deal of support around that that's not yet become law. A critical element of that law, since it was first introduced, is the idea that one would need to achieve 2 years of post-secondary, 2 years of college, in order to make your way through the key provisions of the law and onto a permanent pathway. And so, you know, that's all of you who are in the college attainment field know that that's no easy feat for non-traditional students who may be the first in their families to be attending college, et cetera, et cetera. But the other kind of DREAM Act then is very related in a sense. Those are the pieces of state legislation that are often known as DREAM Acts that would allow unauthorized youth or DACA recipients to get access to financial aid, in-state tuition, grants, loans that are really a critical piece for many young people of being able to afford college, persist, and get their degrees. And so they have the second group there of the pieces of state legislation have very different provisions. Things move around year by year because there's always different types of bills being introduced, et cetera, et cetera. And so if you saw the commentary that we sent out from MPI today, one of the things we're trying to do with this webinar and with the new state chart that we're putting up on our website today was just to try and help folks track, in a sense, some of those different provisions, particularly in the states where that are the top states of residence for DACA youth. So more on that in a moment. But for now, just a quick recap, if any of you are relatively new to these issues, part of why these questions around college access and completion have been such a big area of attention for so many people for so long is, first of all, the link to legal status. Secondly, the profound impact that being able to go to college and complete college has in terms of upward mobility, having a successful career. And also because there's just this big disjuncture in education policy in the U.S. where for the kindergarten to 12th grade system, unauthorized immigrant youth have the right to attend public schools. Around 65,000 unauthorized youth graduate each year from U.S. high schools. But then there's there's just really a big gap then in terms of the kind of evenness and the approaches in terms of post-secondary policy, because the protections of Filer v. Doe apply only in that K-12 space. Pulling out to the sort of the bigger picture, both for first and second generation immigrant youth, post-secondary access is getting better overall for children from immigrant families, just in terms of their enrollment, but the gaps in completion still remain, which is a big focus for many of us, how to close those gaps. And you can see there just a quick statistics that if you look at Hispanic students overall, that they have quite lower rates of completion of four-year degrees compared to white students and Asian students. You know, there are a lot of statistics like that. That's just one top line one to pull out. But then again, just beyond access to enrollment, the real focus for us today is on the policies regarding in-state tuition, financial aid, loan programs, and the like, because there's such an important factor in the ability of young people to be able to afford and complete degrees. So then the last little thing I'll say about context is just the DREAM Act and what's happened in terms of the creation of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. Most of you know that a major shift in the federal policy landscape took place back in 2012 when President Obama announced the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program that provides unauthorized youth who meet a set of criteria with relief from deportation and with work authorization, but not a path to citizenship. And of course, that was a very unprecedented action on the part of the president, who had been waiting for many years for Congress, saying that he was waiting for Congress to act on the DREAM Act. It's unprecedented also because it does pick up the idea of educational attainment being connected to an immigration benefit. It requires a high school diploma or equivalent or for someone to be enrolled in adult education and training if they don't have a high school diploma. So then you can see there the number of people who had applied as of the last time we saw statistics from USCIS on that. And though DACA does not have any sort of college requirement, one of the things that many of us in the field have been continuing to try and keep a focus on is that post-secondary education could still be a prerequisite for benefits in the future, for immigration benefits in the future, if the DREAM Act remains the model for a legalization program. So this is just a quick look at you know, some of the resources that are available through MPI. So with an eye to the future here, looking at DACA, its potential impacts on education success and attainment for unauthorized youth, we have been doing some field work around the country trying to get a sense of what are the ways in which DACA may be maybe supporting youth in making their way to the degrees and diplomas that they may need in the future. And as part of that today, we're just updating what had been in a January report on all these issues, updating some of the basic state information into a broader look at the landscape in the highest states of residence for DACA youth. So before moving to that level of specificity, we have asked Tanya Broder to give us the lay of the land with regard to in-state tuition and financial aid policies. And I should say that this area of in-state tuition financial aid policies is just one of many, many areas where Tanya is a leading expert in the U.S. on issues related to immigrants and their rights and their access to various types of programs. You can see her bio there on the screen. As a senior attorney at NILC, she works on a variety of issues and is really everywhere in terms of litigation, trainings, technical assistance, and the like. And we're just so delighted that she could be with us today in order to walk us through really a lot of the foundational information about in-state tuition, tuition equity, and the like. So, Tanya, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Margie, and hello, everybody. As Margie asked me to do, I'm going to walk through the rules underlying in-state tuition across the country. And as many of you may know, the tuition policies vary greatly from state to state and often by institution. There are different pathways to paying in-state tuition at colleges. Some people may be paying in-state tuition because they are state residents. Others may be exempt from the out-of-state rates because they are veterans, are part of a military family, they may be athletes, disaster survivors, or other criteria. There are many pathways. In 1996, however, the federal immigration law, otherwise known as IRA, limited states' ability to provide post-secondary education benefits that are based on residence to students who are not lawfully present in the United States, that is, unless citizens are offered access on the same terms without regard to their state residence. States and educators and others took a close look at those federal rules and crafted policies since 2001 that do allow citizens and immigrants who meet certain criteria to pay the in-state tuition rates in a manner consistent with the federal law. Texas was the first state to take this step, and many other states, as you'll see, followed. These are called tuition equity policies. Let's see. Yeah. Tuition equity policies allow students generally, who attend a state's high school for a certain number of years, graduate, and meet other criteria to pay the in-state tuition rates regardless of their immigration status. And so far, at least 20 states have either a tuition equity law or policy in place. And looking at the number of foreign-born, over 75% of the foreign-born in the U.S. live in a state that has either a tuition equity law or policy. And increasingly, states are taking the next step because in-state tuition itself is often not enough to help somebody, especially a low-income student, to afford to go through college. California, Hawaii, New Mexico, Minnesota, Oklahoma, Oregon, Texas, and Washington all offer some form of state financial aid to students who are eligible for in-state rates regardless of their status. California, Illinois, Minnesota, and Utah also offer institutional aid or scholarships to these students. So it's pretty exciting for us to see states across the country opening up access to higher education for students regardless of status. And I've put up now on the screen a map that'll show you across the country all the green. All the green states are states with tuition equity laws or policies that help to make higher education available to students regardless of status. You'll see green pretty much in every corner of the country, including down there in Florida most recently. The darker green are the states where financial aid or scholarships are available. And the red states on this map in Alabama and South Carolina are the states that ban admission altogether to undocumented students. Georgia is in pink because it bans admission to undocumented students at the 5 technical competitive colleges in Georgia. But by and large, the green is expanding. We're excited about that. And I should note that this map does not capture all of the institutional policies. There may still be additional colleges that either accept or deny students who are unlawfully present. Those are not fully captured in this map. So, what about students with DACA? Margie explained what deferred action for childhood arrivals is. One thing important to note about students who are granted DACA is that they are actually lawfully present in the U.S. and therefore not subject to IRA's restriction on access. Thus, they may actually establish state residence and pay in-state tuition on that basis, in addition to the pathway that's available regardless of status. Students granted DACA, the USCIS clarified, are not precluded by federal law from establishing domicile in the U.S. And that's important because many of the states use that criteria to determine if somebody's a state resident for tuition purposes. So, in the states that do have tuition equity policies, if a DACA grantee has gone to high school for the requisite number of years, graduated, and meets all the other criteria, that DACA grantee can pay in-state rates. In addition, even in states without those in-state tuition policies, access for DACA grantees may be possible. This is going to depend on the state's or the institution's definition of residency. Some states require that you live in the state for a year with your status, or some states require that you be financially independent. There are a lot of different criteria. It depends on whether the state has specific document requirements for its in-state tuition based on state residency. A few states consider in-state tuition to be a public benefit and restrict it on that basis. It also may vary from college to college, so it's a good idea to kind of stay on top of what your college does, and also to look at existing rules to see if DACA grantees may already be eligible for state residence in your state. What we've seen so far is that states as diverse as Arizona, Alabama, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Ohio, Virginia, and others have determined when they looked at their own rules that DACA grantees can establish residency for tuition purposes under their existing rules. Angelo may talk a little more about some of these policies. Now, are we done? No. The advocacy to expand access to in-state tuition and financial aid for immigrants regardless of status has continued. This year, at least 12 states saw bills introduced, tuition equity to expand access to in-state tuition, and at least 8 states saw bills proposing to expand access to financial or institutional aid. And what happened this year was Oregon extended state financial aid, and Utah made scholarships available to students who qualify for those in-state rates regardless of their status. Connecticut improved access to in-state tuition by reducing the number of years required in high school from 4 to 2, and by making sure that survivors of trafficking and serious crimes could be eligible for their in-state rates. Tennessee fell just one vote short of expanding access to, extending in-state tuition to DACA grantees. That bill, which passed one house, will go to the other house next year and continue without having to start over. So we're hopeful that we'll see it in Tennessee before too long. The campaigns are expected to continue next year, and it's worth noting also that educators, businesses, and advocates and students fought hard this year to preserve in-state tuition policies in Texas, Kansas, and a few other states where they were threatened. But really, these are very popular policies with many beneficial effects that have been experienced and documented by researchers and others. And so far, they're only growing in popularity. we at the National Immigration Law Center have a toolkit with many different resources that you can consult, including the map and table that we keep updated. Some resources which are really links to other organizations that help with financial aid and scholarships, some of whom are on this call as well, and also research on the benefits of investing in higher education for students, including immigrants, regardless of status. We look forward at NILC to working with all of you on these campaigns. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Tanya. So now to move from the national, sort of the national view and scope down to those states that are the highest states of residence for DACA youth, with it keeping in mind that our reason for doing that is just this connection between the DACA population and a potential future DREAM Act population that might be faced with a 2-year college requirement. We're, I would say, both interested and concerned with what that landscape looks like. So to say a little bit more about that, you'll be hearing from Angelo Maffei, who's an associate policy analyst here at MPI, and he's been deeply involved in MPI's research and other work around the DACA population and educational attainment for DACA youth. Angelo, over to you.
Thank you, Margie. So as Margie mentioned, in our Lessons from the Local Level paper, which was published earlier this year, we briefly examined the variations in policies related to college admission and affordability in the 7 states that were included in our study. We now go beyond those 7 states and have produced a chart of the key provisions of policies affecting unauthorized college students in the top 15 states of residence of DACA-eligible youth. I will now go through some of the highlights from our new chart and briefly discuss recent policy developments in states that have attempted to provide access to state financial aid programs, college savings accounts, and other benefits that have been traditionally denied to unauthorized immigrants. In this next slide, you will see that while 20 states have in-state tuition laws and policies, as Tanya mentioned, a few exceptions have been carved out in the states that do not have any formal in-state tuition policies. As you can see, in Arizona, Nevada, and North Carolina, some post-secondary institutions and community college systems grant resident tuition rates for DACA grantees, while the Department of Higher Education in Massachusetts and the State Attorney General in Virginia have determined that DACA grantees qualify for in-state tuition without having the state legislator act on this. And then a unique exception can be found in North Carolina, where the North Carolina Community College System allows North Carolina employers to sponsor the cost of college tuition for employees who are DACA recipients. In this following slide, you will see that in addition to the high school attendance and graduation requirements, which are detailed in our chart, some of the states have included additional requirements. In Florida, you can see that unauthorized immigrants must apply to a Florida post-secondary institution within 2 years of graduating from high school and submit an official Florida high school transcript as evidence of attendance and graduation. And in Maryland, unauthorized immigrants must register at a community college within 4 years of graduating from high school or receiving an equivalency diploma. And to receive in-state tuition to a 4-year university, students must have attended a Maryland community college and earned 60+ credits or an associate's degree. And we have in New York, where unauthorized immigrants must apply to a New York college within 5 years of graduating from high school or receiving an equivalency diploma. So moving on to some of the additional benefits that Tanya alluded to earlier in some of her slides, in California, those eligible for AB 540, which is the in-state tuition law, are also eligible for student loans in the University of California and California State University systems through the California DREAM Loan Program. Additionally, fee waivers at community colleges and state financial aid are also offered. In Illinois, those meeting in-state tuition requirements are also eligible for privately funded scholarships administered through the Illinois Dream Fund Commission and college savings accounts. So again, as I mentioned, I wanted to briefly go over some of the state policy developments as part of this discussion, which is not included in our top 15 states chart. It's important to note here that there were a few policies proposed in the most recent state legislative calendar regarding access to state financial aid programs, work-study programs, and other benefits that have been traditionally denied to unauthorized immigrants. In California, AB 1366 would have encouraged the California Community College System, as well as the California State University and University of California, to designate a DREAM Resource Liaison on each of their campuses. This would be in addition to some of the DREAM Resource Centers which currently exist in the UC system, as well as some of the California State Universities. And AB 206 would have established a California DREAM Work-Study Program under the administration of the Student Aid Commission. In Illinois, HB 143 would have amended the Illinois Income Tax Act and would have created a tax checkoff for the Illinois Dream Fund and would have amended the Higher Education Student Assistance Act to provide monies from the checkoff to be received by the fund. And then lastly, there was a lot of activity in New York, and I'm not going to go over a lot of these laws, but two bills worth mentioning are AB 4311, which would have enacted the New York State DREAM Act by creating the New York Dream Fund Commission and amending eligibility requirements related to resident tuition. And lastly, SB 3702, which would have provided state aid, scholarships, and financial aid to unauthorized immigrant students. Now I'm going to hand it over back to Margie.
Thanks, Angelo. So I didn't, those of you who have followed our DACA-DREAM work in the past know that as we look at the DACA population, there's a pretty significant number that don't have a high school diploma or equivalent, and many of you are probably trying to help them get those high school diplomas or equivalents, but the idea that in a state like Florida that if you have a GED that you can't access in-state tuition is a pretty big gap or a pretty big barrier based on residency. So let me quickly welcome Candy Marshall. We're delighted that she can be with us. She's the president of the Dream.us, which she will tell you more about, but it's a very prominent national scholarship program for dreamers. Candy has had a very interesting career, working first in the software industry as legal counsel out in the Pacific Northwest, and then in philanthropy for many years, working in global health and the like. So Candy, I think everyone is delighted to see that you've wound up in the world of DACA-DREAM youth. So please take it away and tell us more about the Dream.us.
All right, I would love to do so. Two comments before I start. One is a huge thanks to MPI because in designing our scholarship program, it's actually MPI's research and data that was very informative in us thinking about how to design the program. So our big thanks to you. And second, my colleague, Gabby Pacheco, who many of you know, and I are the first to admit that we are still in a learning mode and likely always will be, particularly as the landscape changes. So I'll talk with you a little bit about our journey as we go through this, and I'll do so at a bit of a clip just to see if we can get through things quickly. So our goal is to have a decade of 3,500 Dreamer scholars, and specifically graduates. So when we started this program, we knew that financial aid was critical to allow access, but that we also wanted to not only get Dreamers into college, but we wanted Dreamers to complete college. And to do that, we partner with partner colleges, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Our journey started out somewhat modest, I would say. In June of 2013, a group of business leaders, philanthropists, education leaders came together and said, okay, let's raise $1 million and send 40 Dreamers to college. And at that point in time, there were 6 partner colleges. Today, so this is just, a short, just 2 years later and a little more, we've got $91 million dedicated for scholarships. We expect to have 3,500 Dreamer Scholars, and we now have 68 partner colleges across the country, and that number is growing. And a quick comment on that $91 million. It is not because we are such incredible fundraisers that we find ourselves with those dollars. It is because across this nation, there are wealthy individuals that are very concerned about the treatment of Dreamers and want to support them in having access to college. So it's just a testament to the good people in this country. Where we focus. So we focus on the states that, and metropolitan areas that have the highest number of documented Dreamers. So we do require DACA as an eligibility requirement. And then states that have in-state tuition. And just two comments about that, because Gabby and I have very mixed feelings about both of them. So the requirement of DACA, one of the reasons we did this early on was, one, we were new to the world, DACA was gaining momentum, and donors were really attracted to the idea that they could fund scholarships for students who would not be deported while they were in college or after, and who would be able to use their degrees to work in the United States and contribute to the economic prosperity. So we initially then limited the scholarship to DACA. What we all are learning as time has gone by is we're creating what is almost a second class of citizen, and it's those who are not eligible for DACA and thus not eligible for scholarships such as ours, and it's closing the doors for their ability to go to college. So it's something we're going to watch and perhaps rethink, but as others design scholarship programs, it's definitely an issue you need to wrestle with. The other is in-state tuition. We confine ourselves to states that have in-state tuition, whether that's directly through legislation or another path, because we want the education to be affordable. What we don't want to do is put Dreamers into a situation where they're in a college and there's no way they can afford to complete. So quick look here. I mentioned our partner colleges. So we select them based on affordability and based on the college having a track record of serving and graduating low-income first-generation students. With our colleges, they commit to enroll 7 to 10 Dreamer scholars each academic year. They have a designated student advisor who works with our scholars, and they agree that they'll work with us in addressing barriers and challenges facing Dreamers. And in essence, what they're doing is making a commitment to be a Dreamer-serving institution. So let's take a look here at scholarship aid. I'm going to share with you a slide that was created by Excellencia in Education, a fabulous organization in Washington, D.C., focused on Latino success in education. I encourage you to go to their website. This is a result of some research that they did. The downside of this slide is that it would suggest that students have to fall in one bucket or the other. And of course, what we really know is students are along an entire spectrum. But what they said is, look, the traditional student profile is that college-ready kids, they roll in a college or university full-time, they enroll right after high school, they live on campus, they generally complete their bachelor degree in 4 years, parents have a college degree, they're white, non-Hispanic. I'll let you read through that. There's what they describe as a post-traditional student profile. And we find that many, not all, but many of our Dreamers fall within this profile, or at least some aspects of it. So one, they may need academic preparation or remediation. And that's not just Dreamers. We see that, for example, in the CUNY school, high percentage of students who graduate from New York City high schools need remediation. They often enroll in a community college and attend part-time because they're often working. They may delay their entry into their post-secondary education. So the average age of our scholars are 21 years old. We accept high school students, those who have just graduated. I think our oldest is a woman who is 30 years old, has 2 children, and she and her husband have a business. They live off campus, often with their parents. It generally takes more than 4 years to complete a degree. They're first in the family to enroll. Obviously, with Dreamers, they have any number of national backgrounds. They work 30 hours or more a week. And interestingly, they make their college choices based on, number 1, cost, number 2, location, and number 3, accessibility. So all of that we keep in mind as we think about our scholarship design. So looking at the idea of supporting that post-traditional pathway, we have both community colleges and universities. And our scholars can use our scholarship to attend either. They can start at a community college and transfer to one of our partner colleges to get a bachelor's degree. We added a community college graduate scholarship because many dreamers started their education, actually earned an associate degree, and then had to stop out because they simply couldn't afford to go on. And as I mentioned here in terms of affordability, we do require in-state tuition. If you do not, you really need to think about what the impact of that is on how the student would put together a financial package to complete. And then we allow our students to use our scholarship within 1 year after they receive the award. Most scholarship programs require that they enroll immediately. But with Dreamers, it's not as if they can just immediately turn on a dime. Many of them have jobs and supporting their families. We had two young brothers in Florida, both of whom won the scholarship, but both of whom needed to defer because they were working harvest and simply couldn't afford to leave that. When you look at application eligibility, I already mentioned DACA status, which is something that was important to our donors, but something that causes us some concern. We have a lower GPA for eligibility, 2.5. Many scholarship programs focus on a 3.0. We did that through the encouragement of our partner colleges. And life happens to Dreamers in more dramatic and significant ways than other first-generation students. For some Dreamers, they were in high school before DACA was an option, and they simply didn't see the point in getting good grades in high school because they didn't see college as a possibility. Others themselves or family members were facing deportation, and it simply wasn't possible for them to focus on high school as a #1 priority. So we accept a lower GPA because of that. We do also accept a high school equivalent diploma, so the GED, although to the point that was just made, that actually can impact ability to get in-state tuition. And we also allow first-time students who have earned some college credits in high school. Many of our students are in dual enrollment or early college programs, and we don't in any way want to impede them. We in fact view that as a really good sign. So looking at the application design, demographics, we ask our scholars, at what age did you start speaking English? How old were you when you arrived in the United States? And are you first generation? And our scholars are selected not so much based on their academic performance, but on essays that they write. We're really looking for scholars who have shown a commitment to learn, have really clear goals and how they're going to achieve them, education goals, and those who have overcome obstacles and have learned in doing that and know how to use that learning to move forward. So when we have people reviewing those essays, we share this demographic data with them so that they can take it into account in assessing the student and where they are. In terms of activities, as all scholarship programs, we certainly collect extracurricular activities and work activities. We also capture home responsibilities. Many Dreamers do not have the luxury of engaging in extracurricular activities because they have significant home responsibilities. So we capture those and they get credit for those responsibilities. From a financial perspective, we have no reference to FAFSA. We make it very clear that income tax forms are optional. If you're filing an income tax return, then we definitely want to collect it. If not, we look for other types of confirmation of income, including simply having it self-reported. And then finally, letters of recommendation. We do want one letter for each scholar, but we encourage them to look to a broad set of people who might provide it. It could be a counselor, it could be someone in the community they've worked with, so some non-traditional sources. Post-traditional scholar selection. I've really talked about this. GPA and test scores are only a factor for us. We're really looking for kids who have demonstrated the ability and determination to succeed in college and life, and we do that through our essays. Scholar community. It is really important for Dreamers, and particularly for our Latino Dreamers, to have a sense of community. Dreamers rely on their peer social networks as they're navigating through higher education, often because they don't have family members who have also gone to college. And we've done a few things. Gabby Pacheco is masterful in this. She offers a closed Facebook site, so our Dreamers can go there across the country and support each other, and they do. It's a beautiful thing to see happen. Gabby hosts events for our scholars to come together, and they're virtual events, and they're attended by hundreds of scholars. And then we ask our scholars to make a commitment, and it's a commitment to pay it forward and help other Dreamers that are following after them, and they really embrace that commitment. It's really important to them and their own success. You'll see the Scholar Pledge there, quick word on award design. We do generally provide a stipend for book supplies and transportation because college presidents across the country said to us the thing that tends to hold these kids up is they can get in with the scholarship, but they have no money to buy the books. Once students are in, we set a high bar for the scholarship renewal. It's a 3.0 cumulative GPA, but, and this is an important exception, if our scholars aren't meeting that, aren't able to enroll full-time, they can apply for an exception. And when they do that, we ask them to submit an academic plan for how it is they will actually complete their degree within 6 years if it's a bachelor's and within 3 years if it's associate. The student advisor has to approve all of those exceptions. And then I've already mentioned that we allow our students to transfer to a 4-year with the scholarship. So what we've learned, the commitment of our partner colleges is critical to our scholars' success. It is one thing to get access. It is another to be in an organization where you in no way feel welcome. So having Dreamer-friendly institutions is critical. We've discovered that our scholars have a sense of responsibility and accountability that is unparalleled. College presidents love to have Dreamers as a part of their mix on their campuses. And as I mentioned, our scholars really seek and thrive in a community, and that's really important to their success. That's it.
Great, Candy. Thank you very, very much. And we appreciate the questions that have been coming in, including for Candy, but so please keep sending them to us, and I'm sure we will have time for Q&A, so we look forward to getting to them. So finally, we are just delighted that Erin Howard could join us today. She's the Director of the Office of Latino Outreach Services at Bluegrass Community and Technical College. She's been a pioneer, I would say, in her work, which I've known about for many years now, where she's been developing a wide range of education outreach and support services to support the success of Latino youth in her state and also nationally. So, Erin, great to have you with us, and turning it over to you now.
Hi, good afternoon, good morning. I'm really excited to be here. I am the Director of Latino Outreach at Bluegrass Community and Technical College in Lexington, Kentucky. And just really quickly about our program, we just this year celebrated our 10th anniversary of actually having a comprehensive office that supports students and families at a variety of different educational levels, helping them really understand how to access higher education in our state and create their own success plans to achieve their goals. We offer linguistically and very culturally responsive educational outreach events to accomplish our goal of increasing both Latino and immigrant college completion and student success. This includes also very specific individualized college admission support for those that can complete the free application for federal student aid, including our DACA recipients, as well as individualized scholarship coaching. Our office also advises about 150 first-generation college students each semester, and those students can include Latino first-generation college students as well as undocumented students, documented students, and refugee students regardless of their ethnic or racial identity. We also are very much focused on student engagement and leadership development, including and utilizing a model that we have adapted from Dr. Angela Chin, who is a doctoral graduate from the UCLA Department of Education. So we really work hard to integrate into all of the aspects of our program planning and services, student voice, leadership, as well as family contributions. We can only accomplish what we do with the support of the students in the community, as well as with college and community partnerships. So our goal is focusing on educational access and equity, raising awareness of access opportunities, as well as different issues that may come up impacting the immigrant and the Latino community in our state. We work together to develop and maintain resources, and then really support students to obtain either their degrees or their goals if they're not interested in completing a college certificate or diploma, as well as moving into meaningful employment and leadership development. So you'll see that, you know, our office kind of feels is connected into, you know, to the community and to the students, with the students really taking center stage and driving the work forward that we're implementing. Really, if we simplify it, for some reason having a problem moving the slide forward. There we go. If we simplify it, we focus on 4 major areas to do our work: relationships, building very consistent, long-standing relationships with students and their families, and understanding that we need to meet the student where they're at, that we are not valuing, or we're not imposing our own goals or value judgments on them, but instead we're listening and we're supporting them in what they see is the best opportunity for their future. We embrace social justice, so we don't shy away from advocating for student access to in-state tuition efforts, to institutional scholarships and aid, and we're working with our students locally now to really advocate for access to state financial aid in Kentucky. So using the social justice model of educating students, raising awareness of their identity and helping them understand who they are and how they fit into our community and the overall society, we really work hard to share leadership with them. So we're empowering them to embrace their vision of who they are, as well as really help empower the students to mold and create the programs that we implement. And then, of course, academic engagement. So our office works with students in and outside of the classroom. We also serve as adjunct professors within the institution and offer first-year experience humanities courses, as well as Latino studies classes, to engage students academically as they explore identity and as they begin their college career. It's not advancing for me. I'm not sure why. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to share with you the example of our Latino Leadership and College Experience Camp. Again, this program was in its 10th year. Last year, we host this program once a summer, every July, usually engaging around 100 young people in the program. So we usually have about 60 high school students and then 40 college students that serve as peer mentors, provide instruction, college coaching, and help run the program during the week of the camp. The program is really owned by the students themselves, and we integrate every aspect possible to help students navigate their way into college. So there are courses taught by undocumented and deferred action students about how to navigate into college, and they support each other with creating plans to achieve their academic goals, which include how to pay for college and how to search for scholarships. Since we started this program in 2006, we've served over 500 students, and we have an 87% college-going rate. Many students do end up enrolling as freshmen at Bluegrass Community and Technical College. However, many students also end up enrolling in our four-year institutions, the University of Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky University, University of Louisville, and all over the state. Many of them on either partial or full scholarships offered by the institution. And of those students enrolling in college, we're seeing really great returns in regards to the numbers of students completing college and then in reinvesting their expertise back into the youth and the community that makes up this program and at large. So I do want to explain for a second that we do have tuition equity in Kentucky. And so we've gone about actually implementing the policy in a very unique way. Our Council on Post-Secondary Education in 2003 amended our tuition rules to allow undocumented students who graduate from a Kentucky high school access to enroll in public institutions and pay in-state tuition rates. So this is actually a statute that's backed up by the Kentucky legislature, and it was first implemented in 2003 by 3 key institutions of higher education: BCTC, the University of Kentucky, and Northern Kentucky University. So we understand very much that, this being a policy, it doesn't have the same legs as a piece of legislation, a bill, a law would have in making or ensuring that all institutions of higher education within a state implement such ruling. So what we've had to do is really build a solid network based on a community of educators, educator activists that work extremely hard to inform and maintain the policy within their institution. So it took us a while just going from institution to institution with courageous students wanting to enroll at those institutions, questioning why they weren't implementing the policy, and then creating with them a community of professionals within that institution that would make sure the policy would be implemented. So finally in 2014, the last regional colleges in the state came on board with creating their own in-house process to implement the policy. And then, in speaking of our private colleges and universities across the state, many of them do also work very closely with undocumented and deferred action students to provide scholarships as well as an avenue into their institutions to complete their education. In 2014, Berea College, which is a liberal arts work college, meaning that students that attend this college are usually low-income first-generation college students, and they do not have to pay tuition to attend. This institution began admitting DACA recipients in 2014. So this year they have a cohort of about 15 students from across the country, mainly from the areas that would include Appalachia, as well as the Southeast, where students cannot get in-state tuition. Also to Kentucky, we have been able to implement the residency rules to allow DACA-minted students who have lived in our state for 1 year the ability to apply for residency through a long affidavit process within each institution. And so these students too, once they establish domicile in our state, are able to access in-state tuition. So our implementation, awareness, and access are really all through partnerships. This is just a slide showing the different partners and the different levels of partnership that we have locally across the state and then nationally with the United We Dream Educational Empowerment Program. Our local chapter of, our local undocumented youth-led organization called the Kentucky Dream Coalition worked with United We Dream to really begin to help train educators at the high school and community college and university level on these policies, as well as on best practices to support undocumented students and deferred action students into higher education. And with that, I just want to thank MPI for allowing me to share a little bit about our story in Kentucky in regards to how we support students into higher education and really cultivate their success.
Great, Erin. Thank you so much. You know, we were just so eager to have you join because we wanted to acknowledge that it takes more than, you know, there's more than financial aid that goes into college completion and success. And so all the great work that you've been doing to really build, address college knowledge for families, academic support and engagement to help youth complete, all that sort of stuff is such an important part of the picture as well. We're going to start getting into the questions right away that have been sent in. Please keep sending them in. Tanya, first for you, there was a question asking if there are any federal bills that are being considered now to change the 1996 provisions that caused so many states to create these tuition equity bills. It's sort of like any update at the federal level legislatively, I guess.
Boy, I don't know the current status of the bills, but there have been bills periodically that would help make it easier for states to do what they're already doing by offering access to in-state tuition. And one that actually, I think it was by Patty Murray, introduced it, and it would provide incentives for states to do better than they're doing now by providing financial aid and other support to students, who are, especially those who are ineligible for federal financial aid. I don't know the current status of the bill, though.
Okay, great. Well, we can also try and track down and maybe make some sort of link to that through our web resources. And then Candy, question about what about kids who have TPS and their eligibility for the scholarships you were speaking about?
All right, and ask me again the question. Would they have?
Are your scholarships only for those who have DACA, or if it's a young person who has temporary protected status?
Yes,
would that be?
I was getting a different acronym and thinking, gee, I don't know what that acronym is. TPS, yes. So yes, our students can have DACA or TPS status. So TPS are eligible.
Great, great. All right, and then Candy, also, how can universities connect with you, I guess? You know, like, are you considering opening up to other universities, and can people suggest additional universities to you?
We will always welcome suggestions, but we don't actually have an application process. We're fairly selective, and we keep the number of partner colleges somewhat low because we want to ensure that we have a cohort of students at each of those colleges. And that, in large part, is because that's what helps support the students in their success. But we will always welcome suggestions for colleges. We are now starting to look to expand not only in the states that we're in, but we'll also be expanding into 2 to 3 states in which we're not in. They're really sort of mixed on that DACA list of states with the highest number of DACA students. So, for example, we're just getting into New Jersey now. Colorado we're going to be taking a look at. Washington State's going to be on our list. So we definitely welcome suggestions.
Great, great. And folks, we'll have Candy's email information in a moment. Then, Erin, we've gotten a few questions about what about students who, you know, may have arrived, for example, 3 months late and missed the DACA eligibility window. They're in a state where that doesn't have in-state tuition and the like. Could you just say a little bit more, given what you know, just more broadly, what are some of the resources for students who don't meet DACA requirements, or how best can you advise non-DACA students?
That's a great question, and from our perspective here in Kentucky, we work really hard to connect the student with the DACA and the undocumented student leaders community. The students are very powerful in being able to share their own stories, and since we have now a whole decade of students that are still connected together, the ones that made their way through college before DACA was ever a dream or ever existed, can really provide a lot of wisdom and mentorship to these younger students who are now finding themselves, you know, in this limbo of, well, what's next for me? As an educator, it's really important to sit down with the students and you know, really listen to what their goals are, and then encourage them with the realities that, you know, if they can achieve a college education, even if it's just a certificate, a diploma, or a 2-year degree, you know, it's going to take them time, especially when they have to pay for it out of pocket and do not get state financial aid, or they're having to pay an exorbitant amount in their tuition. Is just to really, you know, encourage them, connect them to the community, and just reiterate that, you know, This is very idealistic, but just reiterate that education is one of the only things that cannot be taken from us, once we obtain it. I have students that before DACA, it took them 7 years to complete their 2-year degree, but they can do it, and we have to really encourage them and believe in them that they can. In terms of resources, I would point individual educators, educator activists, advisors, to Educators for Fair Consideration. They have some wonderful language on how to coach a student or how to advise a student in a difficult situation like this. And then also, if you go to unitedwedream.org/DEEP, D-E-E-P, there's also some resources on how to encourage and advise students through making these difficult decisions and figuring out how to pay for college.
Great. And then, Erin, I wonder, just given that you're in this world in terms of all the advising, are there other, I thought, Candy, it was really helpful that you sort of talked about some of the, the things in traditional scholarship programs that make it difficult for DACA youth, for example, to be able to qualify for them. We have someone, though, Erin, who's asking, what are some of the resources out there for filling out the FAFSA if you're an undocumented student, a student with TPS, child of undocumented parents? There are a lot of different situations, and it is confusing for folks who are trying to deal with the federal financial aid form.
Right. So for federal financial aid, students, the only categories of students that can actually complete the application would be, citizens, permanent residents, refugees, and then with a group that they call ineligible non-immigrants. So this would include deferred action students. So if a student is undocumented, their institution, so this is very, very particular to each institution across the country, their institution may allow them to complete the paper form so that they can get a student aid report or an expected family contribution for their institutional-based scholarship. But technically, it would be very difficult for them. Their application would not go very far on the online FAFSA system. So for deferred action students, they can use their social issued to them through the program, and then for their parents, in lieu of the social, they need to put all zeros. And so this also applies for the undocumented parents of a U.S. citizen student who is applying for financial aid. My advice is to always start early in the financial aid process for students that have deferred action and for students that have undocumented parents, because there are some additional layers that they're going to have to go through in order to complete the application and then go through their institution's verification process, which is usually required for students whose parents cannot fill out the online application because of their lack of social security number. Again, do not use an individual tax identification number. For resources, again, I want to point folks back to the UnitedWeDream.org website and search for their Dream Educational Empowerment Program. We have resources listed there that explain financial aid, how to complete the financial aid document, and which need-based scholarships, for example, like the Hispanic Scholarship Fund, that is open to deferred action students but requires that the student complete the FAFSA.
Great. All right. Well, that's terrific, Erin. And I think we do have a number of questions that we haven't gotten to answer yet, but I'd say that most of them are, they're pretty state-specific, and so we will divide them up if they make sense for a particular speaker who's been on with us today, and otherwise we'll answer them from here at MPI. But for now, I would just like to thank Tanya, Candy, Erin, Angelo for their great presentations. You can see email information, contact information for all of them on the screen right now. And then you'll find other information up on our website following up on, you'll be able to get both the slides from today, listen to the audio or share it, and then links to other information on these issues. So thanks to all of you who joined us, and for all the terrific information from the presenters. Very much appreciated. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.